Hey.
Alright, so the LA Lakers have decided to bless us NBA fans with just a tiny little parcel of relevant breaking news as they have signed Christian Wood, finally done holding out as a free agent. The Lakers have been in the market for another backup big for Anthony Davis, obviously because we know he has a little bit of a history with some injury issues. They brought on Jackson Hayes earlier this offseason, but it definitely does not hurt to bring on Christian Wood, who's just a more reliable backup big, who could also give you some spot starts and have some nice production, again in the case that Anthony Davis misses time. Plus, it only costs him about $3 million, and he has a player option on the next season. So for that amount of money, it's a good bet that Christian Wood probably overproduces, at least for this first season. Now, Wood is a very decisive player in the NBA. For some reason, there is a very vocal group that loves Christian Wood, and there's also a pretty vocal group that does not like Christian Wood. And I think most of that boils down to the fact that across his career so far, he had a breakout year in 2020 when he signed on to the Pistons after having a nice end-of-season stretch with the Pelicans in 2019. And since 2020, he's been pretty close to averaging a double-double. He's started a lot of games, and he's been, again, just a productive player overall. Yet, if you look deeper and actually watch some of the tape, some of the games, you can see why there are some people that are hesitant to want someone like Christian Wood on their team. And I'm simply here to explain why that is. Now, offensively, again, Christian Wood perfectly fits the mold that the Lakers are looking for. They wanted to go out and get a stretch big that could back up Anthony Davis. It's pretty ironic that the Lakers ended up getting Christian Wood because I remember back when he was having his breakout season, there were a few people that were calling him, Anthony Davis Light or Anthony Davis 2.0 because he had a pretty similar play style to Anthony Davis, nowhere near as good defensively, obviously, but at least on the offensive side of the ball, they had similar games, and it was at a point where Christian Wood was still pretty young and maybe had some potential to grow, and people thought he could maybe grow into something similar to Anthony Davis. Obviously, in hindsight, we know that has not been the case, but regardless, Wood has developed into a fine player. For starters, he has a really nice jump shot. He's a career 38% three-point shooter. He gets up about 5 per game over the past couple of seasons. Obviously great in the pick and pop. That's his bread and butter. As his three-point shooting percentage actually increases to almost 42% when he is in just a purely catch and shoot scenario. Plus, if teams cut off and close out hard, he does have the ability to put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. And although it's not always the prettiest thing to watch happen on a basketball court, again, he can be effective with it. He gets to the floater range, he can take it all the way to the rim. Again, it doesn't look pretty most of the time, but he gets it done. He also isn't afraid to go into the low post or you just use his body when he gets a smaller defender on him. He's not afraid to just bully ball them, get to the rim for easy layups and dunks. He is someone who you can give him the ball and just tell him to go get you a bucket and he's able to go do that. Again, he's not the most effective guy, but in terms of a stretch big, he's a lot better at putting the ball on the floor and going and scoring the ball than many others. And diving back into pick and rolls for a second here, just because, again, that is his bread and butter. He's amazing at the catch and shoot stuff off of pick and pops. If he rolls off of the screen, he's also great as the roll man. You can feed him for lobs. You can also just give him the ball and he will work in the paint and go get you a layup or a dunk. But another thing I have to point out here is he is a pretty terrible screener. He doesn't make contact, at least solid contact, a lot of the time. He ghost screens a lot, and sometimes that works if you want to do a slip screen and get him to the rim, or just, ghost screen and send him out to the wing for a three-point attempt. All of that's perfectly fine, but when you're just trying to run a basic pick and roll, and he is not putting his body on the defender, it can also lead to plays like this, where it just leads to turnovers that don't have to happen in the first place if he just sets a proper screen. You might be saying, this is a tiny, minor little thing, why are you getting so upset about it? But again, it's these little things that make players great and make players not great. And it's something that Christian Wood, I wish he would improve on, because you can tell he just shies away from contact a lot when setting screens or going into the paint. It's a problem. Now, if we can look past that point, though, get through just the actual screening part of the pick and roll, when he isn't pick and popping and he's being the roll man, he's a lot better than you expect a stretch four to be in this scenario. He does roll pretty hard, even though he doesn't always welcome contact, and if you give him the ball on the short roll, again, he can go get you a bucket. He's also pretty skilled at passing out of the short roll for assists, whether it's to the weak side corner. He's had some nice dump offs. He had a nice big-to-big dump off in the games I watched. And although I don't necessarily trust Christian Wood with the ball in his hands, especially in a place like a transition opportunity, He did randomly have some really nice passes, a couple dimes here and there, where it really jumped off the screen to me. It made me think, what would an offense look like if you were to put Christian Wood at the top of the key and use him like a Bam Adebayo or a Steven Adams, where he's the fulcrum, you have guys cutting backdoor. Could he be skilled enough and just have a good enough feel for the game that he could hit backdoor cuts or just move the ball in general? Now, the main issue with Christian Wood, and the biggest reason why there are a lot of people that do not like him as an NBA player, is his defense. Just simply put, his defense is not always great. He's very hit or miss. He's a high risk, high reward guy. If you want some sort of an analogy, if you're a football fan, I'm not really a huge football fan, but I have something hopefully I can break through here. But think of like Trevon Diggs and the Cowboys. He's going to get you a lot of picks, but he's also going to get burnt a good amount too, and you just have to give and take, have that relationship where, you'll take the wins, but you also have to suffer the losses. And I say that because there will be games where Christian Wood will pop off, have like 3 steals, 3+ blocks in a game, and be a monster defensively. But then you also have some other games where he's constantly getting beat, he's constantly late in rotations, he's not putting up much rim protection at all, and the other team is just dominating the paint. So yes, you will see some highlight defensive plays where he has a really nice block, or he uses his long arms to get into passing lanes and steal passes, but there will also be a good amount of highlights for offensive players attacking him, where they just beat him easily, or he just offers no resistance at all. Now, I don't think this will be as big of an issue as it has been in the past, because the Lakers are actually a good basketball team with a solid defense. If you look back across Christian Wood's career, he's played on a lot of really bad teams. The only team in the past 4 seasons that has been above 21 wins on the year were last year's Dallas Mavericks, and they only won 38 games and didn't even make the playoffs. Whereas on this current Lakers team, you have Anthony Davis, who is a DPOY candidate pretty much every year that he's healthy. You have Jared Vanderbilt, you're going to have Taurean Prince. Austin Reeves is a solid defender. LeBron can still be a very effective defender when he chooses to be. Overall, he's going to have a lot of help on that back line. The Lakers forwards room is pretty stacked defensively, so I don't think his defense will be as big of an issue, especially if you can just sit him in the paint and just tell him, hey, just guard the rim, that's all you got to worry about, we'll do everything else. I think he could be effective in that role. So with the big question at the end of the day, will Christian Wood be effective for the Los Angeles Lakers? I will probably be leaning more towards yes than no. Again, he's only costing them $3 million, so even if he does end up being a bust and rides bench most of the year, or even if they waive him at some point, was not a whole lot of money to begin with. But in the chance that Christian Wood can deliver and be a solid, effective basketball player, then you have a tremendous big off the bench who can go and get you 20 points any given night. He can provide some solid rim protection, and most importantly, he can just be a good Anthony Davis replacement for times when Anthony Davis is either hurt, in foul trouble, not playing well, any of those sorts of things. So while I wouldn't start planning the championship parade anytime soon because of this one deal, it is another step towards a successful offseason for the Los Angeles Lakers as a whole. And that'll be it for me. That is enough Christian Wood talk for my liking. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff if you enjoyed the video. And most importantly, I'll be seeing y'all in the next one. Have a good one.